All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Andy Elliott. Welcome to the Broadside podcast. That's Cody, BB, and the Crooks. Thanks for the intro music, guys. And today we have a special guest, Caleb Gamache. He's going to tell us a story about his mule deer hunt he went on, and with the help of an awesome organization called Outdoors for Our Heroes. So let's get after it.
So just go ahead and let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on. My name's Caleb Gamache. I was born and raised over in Selah, Washington, on the east side of the mountains. Left pretty much right after high school. Tried my hand at college for a while. That didn't work, and decided to join the Army. So I joined the Army beginning of 2004. I've been in the Army ever since then. Big on anything outdoors, really. A lot of hunting, a lot of hiking, a lot of going out and looking for sheds. And that's pretty much how my wife and I spend the bulk of our time. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
So I guess, I don't know if you want to dive into a little bit of your military background or...
Yeah, we can go with it, sure. Yeah, so I came into, well, in all honesty, I tried to be a Marine first. So I went into the Marine recruiter after I, basically drank myself out of college, and was almost all the way through the process. And then whoever, I don't know if it was the commanding officer of the recruiting station, came in and noticed I had tattoos. And at that time, the Marines were not hurting for people, and their tattoo policies were pretty strict. And he walked in and saw me and was just gave me a nope. So they canceled everything out. I walked out of there, and then there was the Army recruiter standing there like some sort of creeper. Like, hey, man, you don't want to go Marines anyways. So I went in and talked to him, and I joined up on what's called a 18 X-ray contract, which is basically you join the Army, you go through basic training, infantry school, you go to airborne school, and then you go directly and try out for Army Special Forces. So I did that, by the grace of God and pure luck, I made it through. So I became a 18 Delta, which is a Special Forces medic. Went to 5th Special Forces Group, was there from beginning of 2007 through, middle of 2012. After that, I went and taught back at our schoolhouse at Fort Bragg. And then my wife, God bless her soul, was like, hey, kind of tired of living on the East Coast and in the South. I'd like to get back to our families. So I put in a transfer, and I ended up at 1st Special Forces Group, and I've been up there since 2015. So it's been a good ride, man. It's a good career, best job in the Army for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So have you always kind of had a love for hunting, or is that something you found later on?
I've had a love for shooting. I've always liked to shoot. Yeah, I grew up in the middle of an apple orchard, and at a real young age, I was pretty unsupervised, and I would take my mom's 410 or her 22 out, and I would go into the apple orchards and shoot birds and rabbits and squirrels. But the hunting thing, I didn't come from a hunting family. And I honestly didn't get into actual hunting until I met my wife. And she was into hunting. She's from a hunting family. And so I may have fibbed a little bit and told her I too was into hunting to get her to like me. And we kind of stuck with it after that. So yeah, it was definitely a trying to get the girl thing that got me into it. But that was 2009. So yeah, I've been doing it pretty heavy ever since.
Nice. Yeah, it's usually how we get into a lot of things.
Yeah, most things.
Yeah. So I seen recently you went out and smashed a huge mule deer in Oregon. And it just seemed like a pretty cool story on how that all went down. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about how that got set up and what program or I guess charity that you used.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife is much more personable and outgoing than I am. She likes to talk to people. And we were actually up at the Sportsman's Show up in at the Puyallup Fairgrounds. And we're walking around, and there was a booth set up there. And it's a nonprofit called Outdoors for Our Heroes. And we started talking and, BSing with them. And, she was like, well, my husband's military. And we're like, well, does he have a Purple Heart? And I was wrangling the kids at the time. She's like, yeah, he does. And they're like, well, does he want to go hunt mule deer down in Oregon? And so about this time I come walking over, and I was like, what's the mule deer? And they started explaining it to me. So they get a couple governor's tags from the state of Oregon every year that they then give out to Purple Heart recipients. And I was all about it. I mean, I've hunted mule deer a couple times, Idaho, Washington State, and I've been generally unsuccessful. And they're like, "No, this is prime land, prime time." It's like fantastic. So, hung out with those guys. Just a really good organization. I mean, they do so much for wounded veterans, and I mean not just younger guys like me. I mean, they're taking 75, 80-year-old men out and getting them elk and deer and bear and moose of a lifetime. But yeah, they took me down there. It was right outside of Richland, Oregon, so down in that southeast corner. And there was another guy out there named Joe Hewitt, I believe his last name is. He's a firefighter. Basically he heard that I was coming down there on some outdoor forum that the president of the Outdoors for Our Heroes put out there. Said, "Hey, we're looking for a nice area. If anybody sees any nice bucks, let us know." And this guy and his friends scouted for me, not knowing who I am, for a week straight, and maybe even longer. And he was out there before I even showed up on the ground. And he called up and he was like, "Hey, I've got, a couple, good bucks spotted. Come up here and we'll see what we can do." And so we hunted with him. And I mean, just a good dude, but B, I mean, I'm in pretty decent shape, part of the job. This guy moving through those mountains, I mean, I felt like I was 500 pounds and it never worked out in my life. I mean, he was just trucking along, and he'd spot him and move off in front of me, and I'm waddling along behind him trying to keep up, but God, he could move. But we ended up it took a couple days, but we finally spotted this buck in an area we could get to him. And so he was chasing 4 or 5 does, and we'd move and, get behind some, a terrain feature, try to get around to him. And then that sucker would move 500-600 yards further and further down the mountain towards this reservoir. And we just kept following him. Finally, they ducked over this ridge and they bedded down, right along the reservoir. And so we had to low crawl down this ridge line, get up on this little knoll, and then weasel our way in so we could see him. And all we could see was the tines of this buck. And we're sitting there, and Joe leans over and he's like, "Hey man, that buck's right down there." He goes, "But it doesn't look like the same one." And I was like, at this point, I'm looking, and I never see big mule deer. I'm used to hunting like blacktail, or public land whitetail. And I'm looking through my scope, and I was like, "It looks like a real good mule deer to me." He's like, "He's nice, but he's not the one we've been looking for." And I'm like, "Dude, he's nice enough for me. I'm not a trophy hunter." He's like, "Okay." So we're sitting there, and we're like, as soon as he stands up, man, we're going to put a round in him. We're about 250 yards. And it's freezing cold, wind's blowing. It's pretty miserable out there. It starts snowing and sleeting. So now I'm thinking to myself, all right, now I'm cold. Now I really want to shoot this guy. Let's get this going. And that mule deer, they don't start to get a little antsy. A couple coyotes come over the ridge, and the deer are looking at him. We're like, oh yeah, he's going to stand up. And then right before, I'm kind of settling in, Joe goes, "Holy crap, there's another buck." I was like, "Where?" And he's like, "He's right below the other one. That's the one we're after." I was like, "Get out of here." So we had to low crawl down a little bit more, and sure enough, this buck was, he's probably another 2 or 3 inches wider. Much thicker. He's got dual brow tines on either side. I was like, that is definitely him. So we had to wait around for another 30 minutes or so, and they finally stood up, had 300 on him, and dropped him right there. Really good shot. Was super proud of myself because I was leaning sideways on a hill, and I had to shoot through kind of some tall grass. So, I could see his whole body, but it wasn't like, there wasn't a clean sight picture on him. And I'm leaning off to the side. It was so cold and the wind was blowing so hard that when we tried to talk to each other, like your jaw was frozen too. A lot of mumbling going on, but man, we put a round in him. He dropped right there. And definitely the biggest deer period I've ever shot, but gosh, talk about having a newfound love for another type of animal. Cause mule deer they're just so much different than the blacktail over on the west side or you can see, 150, 160 inch whitetail up in northern Idaho where we hunt a lot. But this sucker's just so much cooler, so much wider, so much thicker. Yeah. So that's my new obsession.
Yeah. They're definitely a lot, they're a lot harder to gauge. You see one of those big bastards and you just get excited no matter how big it is. It's hard to pass up any of those big mule deer, especially me being from the west side as well. Always growing up looking at, blacktails all the time.
Oh yeah. It's hunting blacktails is such a different experience too.
Yeah.
being able to spot animals from 500, 600, 1,000 yards away and be like, oh, there's animals. Let's figure out how we can get a shot on them. Hunting blacktail over on the west side. I mean, you're either sitting in a blind or sitting on the ground somewhere hoping that one comes by, or you're ripping through blackberries and dense brush trying to sneak up on an animal that is used to being hunted by cougars and bears. So that's a different experience for sure.
Yeah. It sounds like a pretty cool program. Is there I got on their website and I was doing a little research, and I noticed they've got a banquet coming up. Is there a place guys can go to kind of help volunteer? I noticed they're all ran by a volunteer nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And what people can do to kind of help push that program forward for more veterans like you to get a chance like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to their website, the Outdoors for Our Heroes website, there's opportunities to donate. You can reach out to them directly on there. Jason Brown is the president of the organization, and you can volunteer your time. You can volunteer, maybe areas that, you have access to go hunting. Or you can, go to the banquet. The banquet's a good time, and they do it up at the Puyallup Fairgrounds every year. And that's their main fundraiser throughout the year. That's where they get the bulk of their money. A lot of really good raffle items that they put out there. I mean, what did he have last year? He had a bunch of really nice World War II firearms that he was raffling off. And nice. Yeah, I didn't get any of them. I tried real hard, but that program, none of the people that run it take a salary. Everything goes back into the organization and providing hunts for veterans. And it isn't so much, what people think when you're thinking about disabled vets, and what I thought when I heard about these organizations was, guys that are missing, both legs and an arm, or, an arm and half a leg. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. You need an organization to go out there. But the real purpose behind it is when you look at somebody that's still active duty and is a disabled veteran, and injured somehow, it isn't that they can't get out and hunt, is that there's no time.
Yeah.
Especially like in my community, we're gone 6 to 8 months out of every year. So when you come back and get a chance to hunt, you're going out there cold every single year. You've had no time to scout. You haven't had time to prepare. You're going out with a rifle that you hope is zeroed, or a bow you've got to shoot 2 or 3 days before the season started. And a lot of it isn't so much about lack of opportunity. It's about lack of time. And so a lot of the people that I try to get into hunting, people that I work with, it's not that they don't, can't afford weapons. It's not that they couldn't go out and find areas to hunt. It's that they don't have the time to do what you have to do to actually be successful. And after 2 or 3 years of that, it's hard for anybody to continue to do something when you don't see an animal, you don't get anything. So these types of organizations, and Outdoors for Our Heroes is one that, my wife checked out, thoroughly, because there's a lot of these organizations that take that money and, maybe somebody's pulling in $120,000 and driving around in a brand new Raptor every year. But this organization puts everything back into the actual program. All the money goes towards hunts. And they partnered up with another organization called Got Your Six Outdoors, which is a guy who runs fishing guides.
Oh, nice.
And so they do fishing trips as well. And they really do a lot for, veterans in, the Washington, Montana, Idaho area.
Yeah, that's, for anybody, time's the hottest commodity when it comes to hunting, and I'm sure having a job like that, and then getting help from a program like this is all the difference, because I have a regular job and I have a hard time finding time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's that's a whole community of people that are used to being in the outdoors. They're used to carrying weapons, and hunting is something that is natural for them. But man, it's a time thing.
Yeah.
And, being cold and wet in the woods, like we do that all the time, and it's generally not fun. Then when you're going out on your free time, when you're, saying, hey, baby, I'm leaving again this weekend to go hunt, and then you come back with nothing time and again. Getting a veteran out into the woods and make it so they're successful and having an animal, bringing it back, that really sparks something that they can take with them once they retire. And there's a lot of guys, disabled veterans, or just guys that are retired that they leave the military and they don't have a hobby because they've never had time for it, and they kind of flounder afterwards. And so giving them this opportunity to get out into the outdoors, do things that they enjoy, and then be successful at it because you have an organization that's willing to back that up with resources and time and experienced guides and experienced hunters. I mean, that's huge for the community for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's, the word I'm looking for, it'd probably be pretty hard, to have a passion to hunt, not have the time, and then go out a few years and come back empty-handed. It almost make you question if you want to keep hunting. And yeah, any kind of help like that would be huge.
Yeah. So it's a good organization. And if you have, time, a little bit extra money or the ability to get over to that banquet and, you pay the entry fee that goes towards the organization, you have a good dinner, you drink some liquor and bid on a couple items. Maybe you win some, maybe you don't. But I mean, all that money gets turned around and gets put back into the organization. So it's definitely worth your time and your resources.
Yeah, it looked like it said it was the 7th annual banquet and auction on May 13th.
Yep.
And all their tickets are on sale at outdoorsforourheroes.org.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty awesome. So back to that hunt. Were you guys, did you guys truck camp? You guys bivvy in at all, or was it pretty much?
No. So there is right around that area. So Richland's a tiny, tiny little town, and they've got this really small, motel is as, I guess, best as you could describe it. And it's not ratty or anything. It's perfectly comfortable, but it's only 10 or 15 minutes from all that public and BLM land that's down there.
Oh, perfect.
So we'd sleep there at night and then get up in the morning, drive out. And luckily the organization has a side-by-side, because getting up to where those bucks were, that would have taken 2 or 3 hours of hiking.
Yeah.
So, I'm not too proud to hop on a side-by-side and cut out that portion of the hunt.
I'm all about technology.
Absolutely. So yeah, we were prepared for it, because we weren't really certain how it was going to work out. So I brought everything to sleep outside, and that wind was blowing 20, 30 knots. And, I'm glad we didn't have to sleep outside, because that would have been a little bit more uncomfortable than I think I was willing to do at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've got plenty of sleeping outside experience.
Yep. I'm a T for trained in sleeping outside and being uncomfortable.
Yeah. So pack out, are you what's some of the gear you as a guy who kind of does that stuff for a living, some of the gear you prefer? I always I'm a kind of a gear junkie, so I always like to hear and try new things and see what people are using that works. Well,
that's interesting for me. I've spent my whole life in the military using what's called an Alice pack. It's an aluminum frame pack that has, couldn't tell you how many inches it is, but it's just a singular pouch, rucksack, and then it's got a couple pouches on the outside. Standard Army issue. It's been that way for, good Lord, 35, 40 years. And so I've always used one of those, and it's got a waist belt on it. Never used it. Was always told that would get me killed, so I never put a waist belt on. And so for 16 years, I that's what I used for everything. And we're hauling around 140 pounds, for weeks at a time, and I just always assumed that's how everybody did it. And then we started getting issued, fancy packs from what are they called? Good Lord. I can't remember the name of the company. But we were getting, mountaineering packs.
Like Mystery Ranch?
Mystery Ranch. Thank you. Good Lord. I knew it started with an M. So we were getting Mystery Ranch packs and all sorts of fancy stuff, and nobody knew how to use it, because it's got 800, buckles on it. It's adjustable. And so we were wearing those packs just like we would wear Alice packs. You just throw it on your shoulders, tighten it up as much as you can, and go. And we're like, why? This isn't any better. Well, we, started looking into gear, and my wife's big on, reaching out to people, and we started reaching out to Kafaru, and we ended up going down to right outside of Denver where their headquarters was, because they'll fit you for your packs right there.
Oh, nice.
And we met up with Aaron Snyder, really good dude, and he walked us through it. And, I started talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, you're in the Army?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me guess, you've never used a waist belt, you never sized a pack, you never did anything, you just put it all on your shoulders and go." I was like, "Yeah, that's how you do it." And he's like, "Nah, man." And so he set us up with a couple different packs, and I threw a bunch of weight in it when I got home just to go for, a little morning ruck. And I mean, I had 100 pounds in there and it felt like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I like the fact that all his stuff is made in America, all the materials, everything. It's all made in America, assembled by Americans right there. I was like, I'm going to go with this company, but the stuff is just well made.
Yeah.
And so we started using Kafaru packs, and that's all I've used since then. And I mean, just made a world of difference. Like, you're not walking anymore with like shooting pains going through your neck or down your spine because everything's just compressing down. There's actual, points where it's taking weight off of here and distributing it over there.
Yeah.
So it made a world of difference. And that's what I was using out there. I had a Kafaru pack on. And man, it makes all the difference in the world, because that hike out with that buck on my back was pretty brutal. I mean, for the vast majority of it, you could stand up, reach out, and touch the ground in front of you. That's how steep it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it always pays to have good... I did it not the same way, not even close actually, but more of a civilian route where I went through a bunch of the cheap packs and kept trying on packs. And then I actually just last year settled on a Kafaru pack as well. Mm-hmm. And, I'll throw a 5-gallon bucket of paint and get on the tread climber or the stair machine or something, and it doesn't even act like there's anything in there. They're well-made stuff. Yeah, there
is a big difference. I was the same way. Like, when I first started hunting, I went to Walmart and I got everything there.
Yep.
I mean, why not? If it's good enough for, people in Alabama and Mississippi, that it's good enough for me. And I bought all my clothes from there. I bought my, my packs from there, my arrows, my broadheads.
Yep.
I bought everything from there. And, not knowing any better, I was like, this is fine. But when you start meeting people that do this all the time, I mean, talking about Aaron Snyder, whose life is basically backcountry hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a dude that set himself up for success.
Yeah.
Let me run this company, and my job will be to go out and hunt with the gear and basically post it on Instagram, and I get paid to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
But when you start talking, yeah, no kidding, right? But when you start talking to those people, they're like, nah, man, like, this is how it's designed. It's designed to do this. You're like, oh, okay. And it's waterproof? Yeah. Oh, okay. And it takes the weight off your shoulders? Oh, okay. And so it makes a world of difference, especially if you're going to be under load for an extended period of time. I mean, it doesn't do you any good to get from where you are to where you want to go hunting and then be broken when you get there.
Yeah.
Or too tired to get up and, move to the mountains. So I'm relatively cheap. My wife will, shout that from the rooftops. But I will spend good money on good gear because, one, you feel much better when you get to where you're going. It allows you to do more, and it lasts. You're not having to go buy another, what's the name of that company? Good Lord. It's all the outdoor gear that Walmart sells.
Oh.
Man, my mind is shot. Oh, what's the name of it? Anyways, you're not buying new stuff every year because it rips or tears. So I think in the long run, you do end up saving money.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, when I got mine, I'm like, what's a load lifter? Like, what are these things for?
I always thought these were just unnecessary straps that I could take off.
Yep. Yeah, it's made a huge difference, and it just makes life easier.
Oh, 100%.
I see a lot of stuff on social media where you still have those guys that bash on anybody who wears any sort of camo or this specific backpack, and it's like, I do all this in flannels and blue jeans. It's like, yeah, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to be out here a lot longer and more comfortable than you are, because your blue jeans are going to get wet and you're going to freeze your ass off, and your backpack's going to rip when you put a deer in it.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing about the hunting community, especially online, is that everybody has, and it's like that with anything, right? Like, if you talk to somebody who's big into shooting, archery, there's a lot of people that are like, you have to run this setup or else, and they act like you're not going to hit anything. Like, if you do not run this setup, then when you shoot that arrow, there's no telling where it's going to go. And the same thing with the long range rifle people, the backpacking hunting people. I mean, all these little sub communities.
Yeah.
And you would think, because we're all like-minded, if you got all these people in a bar, they would get along just fine, until one of them was like, well, I like to do, backcountry hunts in Montana. And then somebody would be like, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I shot mine from a truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you would think they would all get along, but for some reason, you just can't do it.
I know. Yeah. It's hard to get them all together. And you got the, just the constant banter online of, hate between the same group with the same goal.
Yeah.
And, and it boils down to something stupid like, well, you shoot a bow, well, I shoot a rifle. Well, you like that camo, I like this camo.
Yeah.
And fighting interiorly between us while we're kind of getting destroyed from the outside as well.
Oh, 100%. And the groups that are against hunting, there's none of that. You know, the vegan groups, the anti-hunting groups in general, they don't care. As long as they have the same end state, they'll get along all day long. They'll do joint rallies. They'll, hire, throw money in to hire the same lawyers.
Yep.
And we're really doing ourselves a disservice by constantly infighting when there's a whole group of people that would love nothing more than for hunting to be banned completely.
Yeah, it's pretty prevalent now, and we see it, and they're slowly chipping away. They're going to start with your spring bear hunts.
Yep.
Your small activity. The group of people that do the smallest thing, or smallest group of people. And spring bear hunt, that's a good example. Not a lot of people did it, and you get these guys who deer hunt who are like, well, I don't care if spring bear hunt's going. I only hunt deer. Well, that spring bear hunt's helping be more deer. And if you think they're going to stop there, you're tripping.
No, and there's second and third order effects to all of it, and that's the weird thing, especially when it comes to predator management. They outlawed cougar hunting in California, and then the cougar population starts to increase, and so then the state, instead of opening cougar hunting back up to the public, hires people to go out, shoot these cougars, and then Lord knows what they do with them.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people aren't big on eating cougar meat. Like, we like it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the best meat I've ever had has been, cougar tenderloin. But at least that the money that you pay and your tags and your licenses goes into the state. It goes into conservation. Well, when you allow these groups to take away specifically predator hunting, it has second and third order effects that go down. If you look at Idaho and the elk and deer populations since they reintroduced wolves up there, I mean, those wolves are populating at a real high rate, and they are just wreaking havoc on all the populations, to include bear populations.
Yeah.
Those wolves in the winter will dig into bear dens and rip cubs out of there. Jeez. I mean, those things they're ridiculously smart. And when you get a pack of wolves together, I mean, they'll rip through an entire herd in no time. So, you if we don't come together as a group of like-minded people that enjoy, hunting and the conservation aspects of it, it's not going to be long before, you're stuck sitting on your property, illegally poaching squirrels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good play. I mean, you got to give them credit. They started smart, because if they start with the predator hunting, and it's a smaller group of people that do hunt ungulates and deer or whatever, and eventually the deer and elk population numbers will go down to where that they have a reason to stop deer and elk hunting.
Yep.
Like, it was a great play.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard, man. It is a hard thing to do, to defend that stance to the general population, because my wife actually did a podcast with Dan Staten, the guy who does Elk Shape.
Oh yeah.
And they talked about it there, and she brought it up that there is a caricature of hunters that has really spread across America as, fat white dudes who are, driving around with a spotlight and just blasting anything that they see.
Yep.
And there's even Disney movies.
Exactly.
Where,
I was going to say that.
Yeah. Where that's what they're showing kids, and these guys are like, I think the quote from the one that I saw was, I love nothing more than, shooting America's natural resources.
Yep. I saw that same one.
Yeah. And you're like, this is what they're doing. And that's what people see. And when you have what I call irresponsible posting, where you have hunters that do things like that, like in the excitement of the moment, like I finally got this big buck, and then they go make a scene out of it, and they do, they're laying down next to it, or I saw some idiot doing CPR on a deer that he shot.
Yeah, it's just fuel.
Yeah, it's fuel for it, and we don't help ourselves, and but that's what's going to happen when you have things like Instagram or whatever the other ones are, Facebook, where anybody can post anything.
Yeah.
You're always going to have idiots, like regardless.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that. But unless we can change that mindset for the bulk of the population, people living in cities, unless they see that hunters are, second, third, fourth generation hunters that do everything they can to preserve nature and and are a critical part of the conservation of these animals, then it's going to be an uphill battle the whole time.
Yeah, they're definitely not slowing down. What was it? I think something got introduced about stopping beaver trapping now, from one of the Washington State commissioners, and I think it was the same one that didn't even know we hunted turkeys in the spring, and was appointed this position and doesn't even understand. Yeah, it's getting a little ridiculous. So it's hard to watch some of those meetings.
Oh yeah, well they're not biologists, they're not conservationists, they're activists that get put in these positions.
Yeah,
and and it is I would say that your typical hunter is pretty non-confrontational when it comes to politics, when it comes to things. They want to be left alone.
Yep.
Live the life the way they've been living it, the way that their dad lived it, the way their mom lived it. But at this point, we can't be that way anymore. We have to come together and present a united front based off of science and facts, and say, hey, look, the money that we pay for tags and licenses goes to these organizations that then turn around and monitor the herds, do X, Y, and Z to make sure that they have, winter calving grounds or whatever it is. This is required to keep these herds together. If we don't do it, there's going to be no herds.
Yeah.
And, we have to be able to show that data and come across as anything other than what they're trying to portray us as is just, bloodthirsty rednecks that are shooting anything, that moves.
Yeah. It's, and you got to help hold some people accountable too. If I got a buddy that's doing something stupid and out there slinging lead out of a pickup at shit on private property, like it's, you got to hold your friends accountable as well.
Oh yeah.
Because any of that stuff just fuels their fire, and the people in the middle are going to see that and pick a side based on a small minority of what we do.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think, and I don't have any data on this, but I bet you if you were to look at who reports poachers most frequently, it's other hunters.
Guaranteed, yeah.
Right? Because nothing pisses you off more than going out there following the laws. Like, hey, this is the way it's set up. I'm sure there's a good reason for it.
Yeah.
And then you see somebody out there blasting from the road, onto somebody's pasture.
Yep.
And you're like, nah, no, not today, sir.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you, because most people that don't hunt, they don't know the rules and regulations. So how are they going to know it's poaching for the most part? So I bet you that the people that report poaching the most are hunters. So they're the ones keeping the other hunters in line, because we don't want those rights taken away from us. So, but yeah, if we don't, monitor our own, then things are going to get out of hand real quick.
Yeah. It's also, it's a good incentive to hold people accountable too, with the way that they give you some points towards quality hunts if you do report poaching. My saying is snitches get quality elk hunts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's frustrating if you're a guy who goes out there and does everything the right way, and you hike in 4 miles and some dude blew through a gate on a side-by-side and he's out there just slinging lead at deer.
Yep.
Like it's infuriating. And then that's what anybody who sees that's going to portray you as when you walk into a convenience store with an orange vest on. They're like, those dumb rednecks just out shooting shit.
Yeah, and that's the caricature that's been developed. And, we as a community haven't done a whole lot to, fight back and push back on that.
Yeah.
But, what we haven't done a good job showing either is how much nature and hunting means to, us and our families. And, when you look at passing that down from, you to your kids or getting other people involved in it, I mean, that is a huge part of most people's lives that hunt. And it's not just killing animals. It's going out into nature. It is being a part of that process, doing something difficult. I mean, I don't care how nice of a rifle you have. I don't care how nice your binos are. That blacktail is still much better in the woods than you are. Smells better, hears better, sees better, knows that territory better than you ever will. So it's already an uphill battle. But it's that kind of activity that brings, love for the outdoors. I want as many blacktail deer to live and grow and be healthy as possible, because I would like to hunt them.
Yeah.
And that's all my family eats. All we eat is game meat. We don't eat anything from the store. Of course, I'll go to a restaurant and I'll eat a steak. Sure, I'll do that. But I would rather go out find an animal, take that animal, bring him home, butcher him, and feed my family that than eat an animal that's been stuck in a pen all day, living in its own poop, and then, butchered and sent through a process.
Yeah, God knows what they were eating.
What they've been fed, what they've been injected with. I mean,
most of those people have no problem grabbing a burger from some. They have no idea how that thing even died, and then want to criticize somebody who spent, most of their summer working out, training, preparing, scouting, going out, putting in all the work and effort to shoot one animal, hopefully very cleanly and quickly. Like nobody wants to chase one or make one suffer.
Oh yeah.
And then we're the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, and it's an obnoxious argument that humans aren't supposed to hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you look at cave art from 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, it's all about hunting. That's what humans do, and it's changed. Yeah. Do we have to hunt? Absolutely not. But what's better for the environment? Is it better to have 10,000 cows on 150 acres, requiring X number of thousands of gallons of water and feed and blah, blah, blah? Or is it better to go out solo in the woods, kill what you need to feed your family and bring it back?
Yeah.
I mean, from a pure, ecological standpoint, I mean, one is clearly better than the other.
Yeah. And logical for that matter. But
yeah,
people don't see it that way.
No, because it's, I don't know. It's been ingrained in a lot of Americans that there's a brutality to it that, that we as a society should have risen above. And, God bless them for having that outlook, because that means that their life is really good.
Really easy, yeah.
Really easy.
Other problems, yeah.
Yeah, because, you go to any other country in the world, and I've been all over the world, life is not easy in these other countries.
Yeah.
People are struggling daily, and we don't have that problem here for the vast majority of Americans. So they get to have these real niche opinions on things and get real fired up about them, because if they need more food, well, guess what? The government will just give them more money. If they want X, Y, and Z, they can just order it on Amazon. It's not that way in the rest of the world.
There's not enough problems out there, like real problems for them to have to deal with, so they're just creating whatever they can complain about. Yeah,
100%.
And, they don't get to see, too. I'm sure that, like, when you shot that deer in Oregon, there's this rush of emotion and this sense of, like, thanks to the deer, now that you get to feed your family and all that work paid off. And it's a cool experience, and until somebody you take one of them out there and get them to actually see what majority of us hunt like or do, they'll never understand. Yeah,
and that feeling too. There is, at least for me, there's always a tiny feeling of remorse.
Always, yeah.
When you take that animal's life, and then the feeling of gratitude. I've hunted with a lot of different people, and I have yet to see somebody take an animal and not get a little bit emotional about it.
Oh yeah.
I've hunted with a couple guys that, I mean, there's 5 minutes of praying afterwards, and I mean, and it's not a show. Like, first time I saw it, I was like, are you doing this for my benefit? Because I don't need this. But it's not. Like, they are so grateful that animal, gave its life to feed their families and to let them do what they love, that people won't understand. I mean, I would love to see somebody go into McDonald's, grab that hamburger, stop, and have a real emotional connection with that double cheeseburger. Yeah. Because it doesn't happen. You're very immune to the process when you buy meat from the store or buy meat from a restaurant. It's a vanilla process. You order and it comes.
You're disconnected, hugely from what that animal was. You're not even. It's not even a thought in their head what happened to what they're eating or how it happened, how it got there. It's just, $5, give me my burger.
Yep.
And I enjoy, like, one of my favorite things is being able to process, the game, cook meals with it, feed my kids with something that I actually went out and got.
Yeah.
It's there's something special when it comes full circle, and all the time spent away from them helps, give them nutrients, right?
Yeah. And I mean, also think about this too. And this happens all the time at our house. We'll be eating dinner and one of the kids will be like, what is this? Like, oh, this is an elk. This is the elk that Mom shot last year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. you know, and, oh, this was the one that, you know, this, and this happened. And then you had to go over here and do that. And then, you know, is this the one that we, you know, butchered on the table here and you broke the chair when you did this? Like, yep, this is it. Like, there's a story behind it.
It's all memories.
It's all memories. And there's a connection to that meat, which you don't get anywhere else.
No.
And, you know, that's important. It's important. And it teaches, you know, at least my kids, you know, one, if you shoot something, you eat it. That's a rule. I don't care what it is. And two, you understand that this was once a living creature that is now providing us, you know, the sustenance that we need to continue to live our daily lives. And so there's an appreciation for that animal and for that process that most of America doesn't get when they eat their food.
Yeah, it's, you know, my kids are pretty young. My daughter's, you know, she loves when I take her up to the mountains. We go hike some small trails. They were actually close by when I shot my bear this last year. She was a little shy to it when we were processing it at first, but then she kind of understood, and she gets it even at 4, you know, that when I go hunting and you know, the meals we're having are the deer that I shot.
Yeah.
And it ingrains something in their brain to have a little bit more respect for what the sacrifice the animal made than just getting a Big Mac.
Yeah, 100%. And I wish that portion of the story was focused on more, you know, in both the way people represent their hunts. And I get it, man. Like, when I got down to that mule deer, you know, and after I told him thanks and, you know, kind of had that, you know, that moment of relief and a little bit of regret, and then the gratitude kicks in.
You're jacked
up. And then I was like, all right, I need a picture with this sucker.
Yep.
You know, 'cause beautiful setting, beautiful surroundings. I mean, like, this is going to be amazing. But that is generally the focus, right? Like, nobody posts on Instagram the, you know, 2-point whitetail that they shot last day of, you know, Martin rifle up in Idaho.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't happen like, hey, look at this dink little deer that I shot. You know, if that happens, it's generally, you know, a picture from far away, or, you know, it's hanging after it's been skinned or something. But we focus so much on the trophy and not the process and not the end state of it. And I think if we did that a little bit more, you know, maybe the general public would come across to it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like, it's probably, a little bit difficult for some of those people to grasp, what, you know, I spent time around cities, but like envisioning someone, you know, processing the whole deer out in the middle of the woods, or, you know, not processing, but deboning or quartering out, you know, and it's, to them, it's, if they see it online or see a video of it, it's gruesome, it's horrible, but they'll make those comments over the top of a freaking steak, you know. It's like, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. And is it any different? There's a lot of people that like to rest their arguments on, you know, humans are just animals, you know, and they justify a lot of debaucherous stuff. Say, oh, we're just animals.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have you ever seen a pack of wolves take down an elk? Like, that's brutal.
Brutal.
That is super brutal. That is not a quick process.
Yeah.
You know, that's an hour and a half of them nipping at its, you know, hindquarters and basically bleeding it out over several hours until it drops and just can't fight anymore. You know, that's nature. That's what animals do. We have at least figured out a way to make the kill quick and then use all that meat afterwards. It was actually interesting when we finally got the deer back up to the top of the hill, you know, loaded up and drove back down. There was a Oregon State Trooper sitting at the bottom where our truck was parked. Oh. And he comes out there, and because it was a governor's tag, we were hunting during a time period when people aren't allowed to hunt. So I think somebody in town, probably another hunter, had been like, hey, there's guys out there deer hunting. So here comes the state trooper. And he went through every one of our game bags and was identifying parts of the meat to make sure that we had taken enough of it off of the animal to justify the kill. Like, where else do you see that?
Yeah.
You know, is there a state trooper sitting at Applebee's going, oh, you didn't eat the rest of that steak?
Yeah.
You know, that's waste.
Or at the processing plant, watching all the waste just go get thrown in the garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't happen, you know, and he went through and he's like, all right, back straps, tenderloins, here's the 4 quarters. Good. All right. What about rib meat? All right, well, we took the rib meat. Okay, where's the rib meat at? Well, it's over in this bag. Okay, what about the neck meat? I'm like, oh, neck meat's over in this bag. I mean, he was thorough with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in any other industry.
No, and you know, a lot of people probably don't even realize that that's a law in a lot of states, you know, where you've got to take X amount of meat and make sure that you, even if you lose that animal and it goes bad, like you got to pack that stuff out of there.
Yep. No, that's your responsibility. And it's a responsible thing to do. And that's a part of that responsible aspect of conservation that people don't see.
Yeah.
And, you know, it needs to be brought up a little more, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tough uphill battle. We kind of went off the rails from your hunt and the organization, but you know, it's kind of what we're all dealing with this, the current state. But we're about 45 minutes now. Anything else you wanted to like cover and make sure that we get out there about this Outdoors for Our Heroes and any other programs you might want to shout out that people can look into to help, you know, volunteer to get more successful hunts for military veterans?
Well, there's two things really. Like one, I can't say enough good things about Outdoors for Our Heroes and the people that run it. Ryan and the rest of the guys, I mean, they're just good people that take a lot of time. I mean, they have full-time jobs and they spend a lot of their hunting season, because they love to hunt too, but they spend a lot of their season taking veterans out and, you know, trying to make sure that they have a good experience. They don't get paid for it. It's all volunteer work. Everybody that works for that organization, you know, from the secretaries all the way through, they're all just volunteers. And what they provide, most veterans can't get anywhere else. I mean, how much is a guided elk hunt in Montana nowadays?
Oh yeah, geez.
I mean, 10,000?
Yeah.
I mean, at least. I mean, most people don't have $10,000 laying around. So the fact that they are willing to volunteer their time, donate their resources, you know, they're driving their own rigs around. I mean, Ryan, the guy who went down there with me to the hunt, had just come back from guiding people up in Canada where his truck blew up.
Oh, geez.
So he came back down, and to make sure that I got to do this hunt, he went and just traded his truck in and got a new one.
Oh, fun.
And then drove down in this brand new truck. And now we're in the back country, just beating the crap out of his brand new truck. I mean, I got mud all over the seats. I got blood everywhere. I mean, I felt so bad because it was a really nice truck. But he wanted to make sure that I got to hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of people that they are.
That's awesome.
And they're providing experiences and making, you know, guys' lifelong dreams come true. And they're doing it just out of the goodness of their heart. But beyond that, you know, if you don't have the time, you don't have the extra money, you don't have what to donate to one of these organizations. I mean, if you know veterans that have an interest in hunting, I mean, the best thing you can do is just help them out, you know, do a little guiding for them. Maybe, I know this is blasphemous, but if you've got a spot, you know, your good spot, maybe you show them where it is, you know, because it's a time issue for these guys. And it's a whole, it's a whole group of people that if they were shown how to do things, if they were given the opportunities to get out there and take an animal, these are people that are going to hunt for the rest of their lives. So people that are going to take their kids out. So we can really propagate, you know, the hunting lifestyle, you know, through a whole community that when they get out of the military, you know, you do 15, 20 years. A lot of guys do, you know, 25 to 32 years in the military. You get out and you lose a lot of purpose.
Yeah, it's hard to adjust to become a civilian when
the
rest of us were out scouting for years and building these, you know, waypoints on our maps and understanding where to go and how it works. You know, somebody just kind of gets thrust out there 25 years later, and it's got to be a frustrating uphill battle. Oh, absolutely.
And so if you know veterans or, you know, you know of people that are in need of that kind of help, I mean, everybody's, and I'm the same way. Like I'm no shining example of this. Like we've got a couple spots where, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, my wife found them, but somebody's like, hey, where'd you get your elk this year? And we're like, you know, in the woods.
Yeah, no tell 'em ridge.
Exactly. Yeah. So mind your own business is what that is.
Yep.
But, you know, take these guys out here, give them the opportunity to be successful, show them how it's done, and then they'll go out on their own. Because most of these guys aren't going to hunt your land or, you know, that place that you showed them. They're going to find someplace else. But let them be successful once. Let them feel, that just amazing and really unique feeling of going out into the woods, taking an animal, feeding their family, and let's really propagate this lifestyle, because if we don't, we're going to lose it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we need all the help we can get. But yeah, so I guess we wrap that up. Anybody interested in volunteering or helping, outdoorsforourheroes.org. 7th annual banquet and auction is going to be May 13th. It's Puyallup, right?
Yeah, it's up at the Puyallup Fairgrounds.
Puyallup Fairgrounds. And there is that whole organization is located out of Tequila or something?
Yeah, so they're down in Tequila. They do a lot of driving. They put a lot of miles on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Give those guys a hand so that they can give out more opportunities like they did to Caleb here to go out and smash some mash or mule deer. And thank you guys for listening.